The movie begins with Tom resting on his couch. After waking up, he walks over to the window of his room and spots a thief attempting to steal someone's car. Without hesitation, Tom heads outside to confront the thief. He issues a warning, telling them to leave, but when they refuse to listen, a fight breaks out. Tom brutally beats up the thieves and threatens them, stating that if he ever sees them again, he will kill them. Tom then leaves, but the next day, news spreads rapidly that Tom had assaulted what some believe were innocent boys. Now, the media is fully focused on him, questioning his actions and targeting the entire department following the incident. The department becomes concerned about Tom and, in an effort to calm the situation, sends him to a counselor for therapy. However, Tom is not cooperative at all. He acts rudely toward the counselor, lights up a cigarette, and begins smoking in front of him. When the counselor attempts to stop him, Tom threatens him and promptly returns to the police station, showing no signs of change. Shortly after, we meet Elizabeth, a constable who comes to visit Tom. She explains to him that she had been working undercover for quite some time. During her mission to infiltrate drug dealers, she was forced to take drugs in order to convince them that she was one of them. Unfortunately, Elizabeth eventually became addicted to the drugs herself. Upon her return from the undercover mission, she was sent to rehab. After successfully completing her rehabilitation, she attempted to retake the sergeant test, but she failed it. Because of this, she was demoted and returned to her role as a constable. Tom attempts to offer her some comfort, but it's clear that Elizabeth is still deeply troubled by her situation. Tom then pays a visit to Bruce Roberts, a chief inspector who works closely alongside him. Bruce is going through a difficult time as his wife has recently passed away. As they both go to see her body, Bruce becomes visibly distraught and overwhelmed with grief. To help him cope, Tom takes Bruce to a nearby bar. We see a female police officer walking down the road when suddenly, a hooded man approaches and shoots her. Tom receives word of the murder and immediately rushes to the scene of the crime. Once there, everyone asks him about Bruce, but Tom explains that Bruce is still grieving over the loss of his wife and won't be returning to work anytime soon. Nevertheless, the murder of a fellow officer is something they cannot ignore, so the department brings in a temporary inspector to fill Bruce's role. This man is Porter Nash, but he is not well received by the other officers. Many of them are unwilling to work under him due to rumors about his sexuality, with some believing Porter is gay. Despite their reluctance, their superior officer makes it very clear that they will have no choice but to work under Porter's leadership.
Meanwhile, the investigation into the police officer's murder is ongoing, and Elizabeth is visited by a young gang member nicknamed Metal. He is terrified, fearing that his gang may have accidentally killed someone. Promising to look into the matter, Elizabeth tells Metal that this will be the last time she does him a favor. She warns him that if the person is dead, he will have to leave the city, and if they are alive, he will have to leave the gang. Elizabeth then relays the situation to Tom, and after hearing the full story, Tom advises her to seek the help of Detective Inspector Craig Stokes. Following Tom's advice, Elizabeth contacts Craig and he agrees to assist her, but only if she agrees to go on a date with him. Around the same time, we are introduced to a reporter who receives an ominous phone call from a young man named Barry. During the call, Barry confesses that he was the one who killed the police officer, and he warns that his work is far from finished. He reveals that he plans to target even more officers in the coming days. While speaking with the reporter, Barry carries out another murder, killing yet another police officer. He further reveals that he has a hit list with 8 additional officers on it. Word of Barry's actions spreads quickly and Porter decides to meet with Tom. He questions whether Tom is really the person people believe him to be. As they talk, Tom begins to realize that Porter knows far more about him than he initially thought. Just as they are speaking, news arrives that yet another officer has been shot dead. In response, the team launches a large-scale operation to arrest criminals throughout the city, while also instructing their informants to stay as alert and active as possible. Tom goes to visit one of his informants in the city, Radner, who points Tom and Porter in the direction of Barry Weiss, a man who had recently boasted about setting a police dog on fire for practice. Tom and Porter decide to pay Barry a visit at his apartment, but upon arrival they find no direct evidence linking him to the crimes. Barry opens the door, appearing momentarily confused, but being the skilled and calculating killer that he is, he manages to remain calm in front of the police. Tom recognizes Barry as the man he had gotten into a fight with at a billiard hall the previous year. Tom mocks Barry before leaving with Porter. Afterward, Barry quickly gathers some of his belongings and makes an attempt to hide them elsewhere. However, Tom's informant closely follows Barry and discovers the new location where Barry has hidden his possessions. Radnor, deciding to take matters into his own hands, conducts his own investigation. Eventually, he stumbles upon a car that appears to have been abandoned, and inside, he finds trophies from Barry's killings. This confirms that Barry Weiss is indeed the killer. Meanwhile, Bruce is out buying liquor when he experiences a moment of clarity. He realizes the damage he is doing to himself and decides it's time to get his life back on track. He returns to the police station, determined to get back to work. As he leaves the station, we see that Barry has been following him. Barry has set his sights on Bruce as his next target. Bruce returns home with Barry closely trailing behind him. Once Bruce is inside, Barry knocks on the door. As Bruce opens it, Barry immediately launches a vicious attack. Despite being a trained police officer, Bruce is unable to overpower Barry. He grabs a hammer in an attempt to defend himself, but Barry quickly disarms him, taking the hammer and beating Bruce to death with it. After the brutal murder, Barry calmly sits down to watch TV in Bruce's house. He then steals Bruce's uniform and leaves the scene. Shortly thereafter, Barry calls the reporter again, informing him that he has killed his third police officer, Bruce. He tells the reporter that he wants his name to appear in the paper the following day, and demands that the reporter refer to him as Blitz. Tom is left devastated when he learns of Bruce's death, as Bruce was a close friend. Meanwhile, Barry is seen putting all of his belongings into the trunk of a car. However, Tom's informant has been shadowing Barry the entire time and knows where Barry has hidden his things. The informant reaches out to the same reporter, claiming that he knows the identity of the murderer. He attempts to strike a deal with the reporter, demanding $50,000 in exchange for the location of the items that will prove who the killer is. The reporter agrees and arranges to meet the informant in a parking lot.
The reporter promptly arrives at the agreed-upon location, and the informant shows him the items inside the car. Initially skeptical, the reporter quickly realizes that one of the items is Bruce's police uniform. Satisfied, the reporter agrees to hand over the money. In the meantime, Barry has been watching the exchange from a distance. He sees the informant meeting with the reporter, and once they leave, he retrieves all of the hidden items. Elsewhere, Elizabeth meets with Craig and asks him whether the man Metal was worried about is dead. Craig informs her that the man is still alive, but hasn't revealed any names. Elizabeth then asks Craig what she can do to repay him, and Craig says that all he wants is a drink with her the following night. Elizabeth agrees to his request. At a bar, the reporter hands the informant the money he had promised him. The informant, feeling victorious, says that he needs to use the bathroom and tells the reporter that he will reveal the name of the killer once he returns. However, Barry, who had been following them, sneaks into the bathroom and confronts the informant. Upon seeing Barry, the informant begins to shake with fear. He begs for his life, pleading with Barry and claiming that he hasn't yet revealed Barry's name. But Barry is cold and unrelenting. Without hesitation, he kills the informant and makes off with the $50,000. Dunlop, the reporter, contacts the police to inform them of the car's location, but when they arrive, they find that it is empty. Tom and a fellow police constable soon realize that all of Blitz's victims have been officers who had previously arrested Barry. With this revelation, they conclude that Elizabeth is likely to be Barry's next target. After returning home from her date with Craig, Elizabeth is attacked by Barry. However, Metal arrives just in time and sacrifices his life to save hers. Before Barry can make another move, the police arrive on the scene. Tom and Porter decide that the only way to flush Barry out is to release his picture to the media. Their plan works, and after a lengthy chase, Barry is finally captured. However, despite the police having him in custody, they are unable to gather enough solid evidence against him. After 48 hours of interrogation that yields no results, they are left with no choice but to release Barry from custody. Frustrated by the lack of progress and the legal constraints, Tom and Porter decide to take matters into their own hands. They devise a plan, knowing that Barry will almost certainly seek revenge against Tom for the billiard hall fight they had in the past. Barry, intent on getting back at Tom, infiltrates the funeral of Chief Inspector Bruce, wearing Bruce's stolen police uniform. During the funeral service, Tom deliberately leaves, knowing that Barry will follow him. Tom leads Barry to the top of a parking garage, but when they arrive, It is revealed that Tom and Porter had switched places along the route, catching Barry off guard. Tom, who had been hiding, surprises Barry. A brutal fight ensues, during which Tom overpowers Barry and takes his gun from him. Tom explains to Barry that there will never be enough concrete evidence to convict him legally, but now, given the circumstances, they find themselves in a convenient situation. Since Barry is dressed as a police officer and Tom now has possession of Barry's gun, they can make it look like Barry was just another of Blitz's victims.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more movie recaps.